What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. Like, share, subscribe, comment, IG, TikTok about the video, and we're just gonna hop right into it. So today we'll be talking about YNW Bortlen. Last week I reported on that the state of Florida did offer YNW Bortlen a plea deal. So YNW Bortlen was facing 5 life sentences plus another 75 years if convicted, if he took it to trial. Like I said, he did get offered a plea deal. Now, if you didn't know already, YNW Melly and YNW Bortlen basically been sitting in jail since about 2018, 2019 for the death of their 2 friends. One of them being YNW SNITCH. I can't remember who the second one name is, but allegedly it was over a dispute that one of them had with YNW Melly's mother. Now, he did go to trial already first time. If you're wondering why it's taking 7-8 years to go to trial, did go to trial one time. It ended up being a mistrial. Now, I will also say that they did change it because usually on a jury you got to go 12-0 to get convicted. They did change it to 7-5 to try to make the chances of Melly getting convicted even easier, and that shit still ain't work. So back to YNW Bortlen. YNW Bortlen, like I said, was offered a plea deal. It was a 16-year plea deal. Obviously, like I said, he already served 8. He'll probably, at the time, we didn't know all the details. It was like he probably will get, if he does decide to accept it, we probably will get credit for time served and things of that sort. We just knew it was 16 years, so he may have not had to sit that long. So what came out today is YNW Bortlen, long story short, has bit the cheese.
Okay. So Mr. Henry, again, 2 cases. We're going to do one at a time. In case number 19, 1871 CF10A, as to count 3, accessory after the fact to murder in the first degree, and as to count 4, accessory after the fact as to murder in the first degree. How are you going to plead, sir? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest? In case number 23, 10643 CF10A, as to count 1, tampering with a witness in a capital felony, and count 7, unlawful use of a 2-way communication device. How are you going to plead, sir? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest? I will accept your no contest pleas as to each. I'm going to find a factual basis to support each based upon my review of each electronic probable cause affidavit as well as your stipulation in court here today. I'm going to further find that you have freely, voluntarily, and intelligently waived your rights, that you have knowingly entered each plea with the advice of competent counsel who you've told me that you are satisfied with, that you understand the nature of the charges and the consequences of the plea. Accordingly, and pursuant to the negotiated agreement, I will sentence you as follows. In case number 19, 1871 CF10A, as to count 3 and count 4, I will adjudicate you guilty, sentence you to 10 years in Florida State Prison. That will be followed by 6 years of reporting probation. I will impose mandatory court costs. Pursuant to 943.325, I will need a set of your prints and DNA. Pursuant to 938.27, I will impose a cost of prosecution of $100. Sir, I'm also ordering restitution in that case payable to Terry, T-E-R-R-I Bagley, B-A-G-L-E-Y, and Ashley, A-S-H-L-E-Y Phillips, P-H-I-L-L-I-P-S, and reserving as to the amount. I'm going to give the state 120 days to tell me the amount of the restitution. If they fail to do so within 120 days, there will be no restitution. If they come back with an amount and the attorneys agree on the amount, I will impose that as another condition of your sentence to pay back. If they come back with an amount and the attorneys...
He has took the plea deal. Now, if you like, a plea deal don't mean he bit the cheese. The reason why I am saying he bit the cheese, because in his plea deal, he has pleaded guilty to accessory after the murder. YNW Melly's main defense was there was no murder that took place, that he was never in the car when these 2 individuals died. And now, if you obviously, you get there, if you are pleading guilty to accessory after the murder, you are acknowledging that a murder did take place, while your friend's defense was acknowledging that a murder never took place. So that weakens Melly's defense significantly. I'm not the only person saying that Bortlen took the cheese. We actually have a lawyer, Bradford Cohen, who Bradford Cohen has represented a bunch of rappers. Kodak Black, Drake, a couple others, but I think he represented Youngboy at the time too, before Youngboy got with Drew Finley. So he has represented plenty of rappers. So, he has a lot in this case. And he as well said that YNW Bortlen has bit the cheese.
All right, let's talk YNW Melly and YNW Bortlen. He is now doing the triple Lindy. For those youngsters that don't know what the triple Lindy is, it is when you do several flips off a high dive, and he will be flipping. He is going to be tell-all about anything he knows about the double murder case, and they will know if he's telling the truth or telling a lie when he gives his full quote-unquote confession as to what happened that evening. And that's what happens. A lot of times where guys are in the prison for 4 or 5 years awaiting trial and looking at a life sentence, and they're offered 10 years where they'll be home probably in another 3 years that he'll serve, he decides to flip and become a cheese eater. And that's what happens a lot of times on these cases. And I was expecting it to happen a lot sooner than it did. He held out for quite some time. But long story short is it looks like he's going to flip. And it makes the case on YNW Melly, depending on what he says, which I anticipate he'll say that YNW Melly is responsible. But depending on what he says, it will make the YNW Melly case a lot more difficult to try. But still not impossible. I've had cases where there were flipping witnesses where, I had a federal case with several flipping witnesses where we still got a not guilty. And it's possible to still get a not guilty in this case. Obviously, it's going to make it a lot more difficult. He has an excellent lawyer, by the way, Fred Haddad, who's a friend of mine. And I know Fred would have done a very good job for him at trial. But ultimately, it is an individual's decision whether or not to become Chuck E. Cheese. And in this case, he has become Chuck E. Cheese. Is Chuck E. Cheese a mouse or a rat? I'm not sure. But long story short is he will be flipping, and it's going to make the case against YNW Melly a lot more difficult to win.
So, man. I have a lot of thoughts on this. For the simple fact, I gave all the details at the beginning about the trial before we got here is because I've always felt like because of how the state of Florida was moving in the prosecution of this case, that they didn't have as much evidence and as much shit on them too as we thought. The fact that you have to go to 7 to 5 and you still don't get a conviction, that's the one thing. So we've been here 7 years. The trial was supposed to be this year. Y'all pushed it back to 2026 to get even more time. It's just a lot of things about this case to me that say the state of Florida didn't really have a great case to convict YNW Melly and YNW Bortlen. Now, I will say, yes, sitting 7 to 8 years in jail is a long time, especially 7 to 8 years when you really don't know your fate. Because they could sit 7 to 8 years and go to trial and get acquitted and be out the next day. So it is kind of wild. I can see that. And obviously, I'm not in his position, so I understand 7 to 8 years in jail is definitely hard. I'm not saying that. But I don't know, bro. Just the fact that you essentially after a murder to your friend who's claiming there's no murder is thing. Now, the details we do got about the plea agreement now is that he's getting 10 years in prison, 6 years probation. Like I said, he is getting credited for time served. So he really won't have to sit much longer. So this is a state case, so it's not a fed case. Don't mean that he has to serve 85%. So he's already served 7 going on 8 years. So he may get out very, very soon, if we're being honest. He may get out within the next year type shit, if we're being honest, and just be on probation for the next 6 years. So it is a pretty nice plea agreement. Even the judge says so. The judge was like, I don't know. I probably put this in here, but if you listen to the end of that clip, the judge said, I don't know how your lawyers pulled this off.
All right, Mr. Henry, I'm not quite sure how your lawyers managed to do this, but I wish you good luck, sir.
But I also, where my issue is at now, obviously YNW Melly was the breadwinner. I ain't never heard no song from YNW Bortlen, me personally. But the fact that Bradford Cohen said he had a great lawyer, I'm still seeing the diamonds in his teeth. Maybe YNW Bortlen is smart with his money and know how to handle it. But my thinking was, when you put somebody, you make YNW Melly, I'm not going to say put him behind the bars because he could still beat this case. But when you make his defense significantly worse, how do you plan on making money when you get out of jail? Now, I don't know if, YNW Bortlen got a trucking company, investments or something like that. But my first thought was, you're putting away the breadwinner. How do you expect to survive out of this? Now, Yes, there could have been the worst case scenario that y'all did get 5 life sentences plus 75 years. But in my personal opinion, like I said, I just don't think that was going to happen because I just don't think we would have been through all this if they had a great case to put them behind bars. I mean, look at it. They even brought Melly's girlfriend in 6 years off a warrant. Something crazy like that. 5, 6 years off a warrant at the end of the case. And the shit still didn't work. I just don't believe their case was that strong. So I think they could have still, took this to trial and got off. I think other people agree as well. But the shit, at this point, it's over with. And, YNW Bortlen has, Oh, I forgot to add this part. In his plea agreement, he also signed a proffer, basically saying that he will give truthful statements about what happened with YNW Melly. So, like I said, that's even increasing the point that YNW Bortlen is a rat. So that's what I gotta say though. Like, share, subscribe, comment. I did tell about the video, and we out.